graffiti writing. We have learned how to write in block letters, and we're going to learn today how to shade with our markers. So some of this is review from 6th grade, and you'll hear references to that. So if you have any interest, there is a 6th grade equivalent colored pencil video for this. If you did not get to have 6th grade art with me and you want to learn how to do the shading that I'm going to show with the colored pencil, you can go back and watch those videos. I'm going to flip my camera around here so we can get started. With a value scale, and learning how to draw color a value scale is probably one of the most useful art skills that you can learn. A value scale is every shade of a color. So you're going to start by pushing as hard as you can push, and then as you move your pencil along, you're releasing pressure. Those of you who had art with me will remember the struggle of learning how to control the pressure of your pencil, and it's not an easy skill. It took us several days to master this skill, but a good value scale has a nice dark, rich start, has a nice medium, and then gets as light as you can possibly get to where you're just barely skimming the surface of the paper. Okay? So when you're working with markers, you really have one option. You have the color of the marker. And I hope that you guys know that no matter how hard you push with your marker, it's not going to get darker. So you always want to use a marker gently so that you keep the tip nice and neat. But what I said isn't just necessarily true. You have one color with your marker, but you can still shade. In order to shade with your marker, you're going to use the texture techniques that we learned last year. Texture is one of the elements of art, and texture is how a surface of an object feels or looks like it feels. So since we are working as artists, we are working with the illusion of texture. So where our lines are smacked together, it's going to be one solid color. But we can use a hatching line to shade with our markers. Instead of having to learn how to control your pressure, you have to learn how to control the spaces between the lines. So this is called hatching, and it is the first basic texture that we learned in 6th grade. Hatching can be used for grass. If you're going up, kind of do like a windshield wiper technique is what I taught them for grass in elementary or in 6th grade. Okay. You can also have a contour line, and a contour is kind of the outline of something. So if I have a contour line that I want to give the illusion of form, but I'm using markers, then I'm going to have my lines, my hatching lines that are moving in a contour, they're going to be darker where they're closer together, and then where it's lighter, I'm going to leave more space. Okay, so the light is shining on the object here, and there's a shadow cast down here. So you can begin to see how this can be used in a million different ways as an artist. The second texture that we learned in 6th grade was cross-hatching, and cross-hatching is where you go two directions, okay? So you're going over the top. When you are cross-hatching, to create the illusion of form or shading, you're going to have very dense areas. There are many, many lines, and then you have to kind of leave more space. And then as you go back over, it's a little bit harder. So I've got a very dark space, and then it kind of flips to this is kind of all the same, and then this is all the light. So then I have to go back, just as we did with our value scales, and kind of make that denser, but not as dense as this part down here. So you have to find the medium and gain control over your blending. So now I have created a value scale with my cross-hatching texture. So cross-hatching can be used when you're blending and shading with markers as well. Okay. The next one is probably the most commonly used. And with colored pencils, when we learn this with colored pencils, it's harder to do because it's harder to make the little dots. But stippling is a dot. It's dots. It's that simple. So where your dots are very, very close together, it's going to look darker. And where the dots are farther apart, it's going to look lighter. So if I want to make a circle, a sphere, and my light source is coming from over here, this is where there are going to be bigger spaces between my dots, my stippling. And then I'm going to have much darker, denser stippling over here. And along the bottom, almost in a crescent moon, I can always go back and make it denser. So if I want to fill in this medium, you can always go back and add more, but you can't take it out because it's markers. So you've got to do little bits at a time and kind of look at what you're achieving. Take a breath and, okay, is that as dark as I want it? Do I need it to go darker? So you can create the illusion of form or shadow with stippling. If you are a manga follower or anime or graphic novels or comic book characters, you will probably recognize these techniques. You may not have known how to do them, but now you do, because all of those fields work in ink. So they don't use a colored pencil to do much shading. They use these texture techniques in order to do their shading. The next type of texture that we learned was scumbling. Scumbling is loops. Loops and scribbles are two different things. It can be loops, it can be figure eights. Again, where you have a very dense color value, I guess, and then you are loosening up. And again, it's not an easy process. Just like we struggled, because the struggle is real, the struggle is part of learning. Failure is part of learning. We struggled to learn how to control our pressure here, and you're going to have a little bit of a struggle as you're learning to control your spacing. Okay, so you got to be able to leave spaces. So I need to go back and do a little. I can see that there's like a break here to here. So I need to go back and do a little bit more, but not as much as I did down here. So because I want it to be a gradual change if you're doing this as a shading technique. Okay. So scumbling can be loops. It can be figure eights. It can be kind of a traveling star is one that I use a lot. Off the screen. There we go. Traveling star that works the same way. The more lines you have, the denser and the darker it is. The more space that you have, it opens up. Okay. So the other thing that we learned in 6th grade that made everybody super excited to become a better artist is blending our colors. So sunsets, oceans, a million different things. I've got 3 values here of colored pencil. My pink is my lightest, my orange is my medium, and my darkest is my red. You start with your, in colored pencil, you start with your darkest and you work to your lightest. In marker, we're actually going to do the opposite, but I wanted to review how we create a blending colors with our colored pencils. So you start in kind of in the center, the higher medium part of your value scale, and I'm going to apply pressure just until I can see it show up. So as soon as I can see it show up, I'm not going to push any harder than that. I'm going to start working down into my darker color, and I'm going to push harder as I work down, and then I'm going to reverse and I'm going to work up, getting lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter. Okay. I'm going to go beyond the red value scale and create another the light part of the orange. Okay. Need to do a little bit more here because there's kind of a line there. I might need to go back with my red and blend that line a little bit better. Okay. Then we're going to take our pink, we're going to move up here. Again, you're going to apply pressure only until you see it show up. If you're working with yellow as your lighter value, remember yellow is so much lighter than every other color. Sometimes we struggle with getting it to blend well, so be patient with yourself if you're choosing to work with yellow. Okay, so there's our blending technique that we used with our colored pencils. We overlapped. With our markers, we do a similar thing. We're going to start with our lightest color, especially if you're using yellow. Everybody's picked up a yellow marker and colored with it, and it's been a green or black or yucky blue-gray color. So I always try to convince my students to use their light colors first. Okay, so I'm doing my yellow, and I'm going to come in with my green, and I'm going to start outside of the yellow. Kind of a medium density. Okay, I'm going to work into the yellow, getting looser and looser. I'm going to come back later. Okay, I'll clean that up a little bit, or I might anyway.
Hi.
So as I do my blue, I'm going to do my blue along the outside edge again, and then I'm going to come into the internal, making it looser and overlap so that I get a nice transition from my blue to my green. Remember that yellow is the hardest transition because it is such a lighter color than everything else. Okay, so that's an example of how you would blend your marker colors using light, medium, and a darker tone. A review in your color theory: yellow and orange and pink, of course, will be your lighter colors. Red and green are the medium colors. Blue and purple are your darker colors. Okay, so you have then you have your neutral colors in a basic marker set. Okay, your neutral colors are the black, brown, and gray. If you wanted to work with those two, your gray is going to be your lighter, then your brown, and then your black is going to be the darker. Other color combinations, you need to think of your color wheel that you learned about when you were in elementary school. Red and yellow make orange, right? Red and blue make purple. So those three colors will work good together. Yellow and blue make green, so those colors are good together. And you also have the colors that are analogous, and those are the colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. So when you're working, and if you have a color wheel handy, you can use that. If not, you need to think of your elementary school warm colors and cool colors. Okay, so the warm colors are all friends, good. They don't make any ugly colors. And the cool colors are all good together. Okay. Yellow and purple make brown. Lovely. Red and green also make brown. It's a different brown, but still probably not what you want. Yellow or orange and blue also make brown. Doesn't mean you can't use those colors in a combination together. It just means where they overlap, you're going to get more of a brown tinge. So maybe a more advanced combination, something you could experiment with. So for our project today, we're going to practice with some markers creating value scales. So I want you to practice doing it with a hatching line. I would like you to practice with cross-hatching, practice with stippling, practice with scumbling, practice with multiple colors of markers if you have them. If you only have an ink pen, you can do all of this with an ink pen or a Sharpie. You don't have to have colors. Happy exploring. Remember, keep in mind, it's an exploration. It doesn't have to be perfect. You're new at this, and all I'm asking is that you try.